Alrighty, so here we go. It's back. MLS is finally out of the March international break, and I gotta say, I would have never thought that 2 weeks without MLS soccer, and really 2 weeks without any MLS team playing, feels like an eternity. And I guess that's what happened when you have the regular season begin, and we have that, and also the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and it feels like there's soccer almost every single day involving an MLS team. That it just kind of feel weird, and also just it felt a drag when we hit this international break where there's no MLS team that is in action. And it will also be interesting with the way that every MLS team is returning to action. It'll be very interesting to see whether this 2 week break actually helps some of these teams or hurt some of these teams. I really think it's a mixture. I mean, for some it definitely helps, especially for those teams that got off to a slow start. Maybe this might be a turning point of them getting a fresh 2 weeks to think about and maybe start to kickstart the season. But then it can also hurt the fact that, for some of those teams that have all the momentum heading into the international break, now that you have this 2 week, you might have lost some of that momentum. And especially, I know some might say that it also kind of helps a lot of these teams that maybe have played so many games already in the beginning of the season, especially teams that involve in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. I argue in some way it kind of hurt them with the way that, with you playing every 3 days per game, and now you've gone for that to basically have no games in 14 days. I mean, that's definitely a huge transition, and the fact that, yeah, it can definitely mess up in terms of the fact that you're already prepared for the next game in a couple of days, but now you have to wait 2 weeks before the season resume again after the international break. But with that being said, with the season resuming, we have pretty much every single game that's going to happen on Saturday, and I think the reason why we don't have Sunday game this week is because this week is Easter. I believe MLS is going to honor the fact that they don't want to have this game that's taking place on Easter, even though I've seen before that has happened. So yeah, it's kind of interesting the fact that we have all the games that happen on Saturday. But the good news is not all these games are going to be stacked up in that tight window between 7:30 p.m. Eastern versus 4:30 p.m. Pacific. In the past, when there's no Sunday game, that seems like what's going to be the case, and how much I hate when that, of course, happened, because there's just too many games to watch. And even then, I still think there's a lot of games to keep an eye on. I mean, we have 6 games that's going to be kicking off at the same time between 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, and there's going to be at one point 8 games that's going to happen at the same time. So yeah, that's going to be tough to try to keep up with all these games as possible. But let's begin. We'll talk about the matinee game, starting off the first game, which is the morning game, at least here in the West Coast, but the early matinee game between Toronto FC versus the Colorado Rapids. So anytime when you are a Western Conference team and you have an extremely early kickoff like what we see here with 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And I know Colorado, of course, live in the mountain time zone, so this will be 11 a.m. But still, that is a very early kickoff, and it's hard to adjust your body to do that. So we'll see whether or not that might affect the Rapids in this one, especially facing against the Toronto side. They have definitely looked more competent, at least in these last couple of games. They could have easily had a 3 game winning streak had they not blew it late against the Red Bulls at home. And it's very important, the fact that Toronto's playing well, because, they're still in the midst of this 9 game home stretch as part of a very heavy home schedule to begin the season. But in terms of the all-time innings, 6-4-5 in favor of Toronto FC. And by the way, we have a lot of matchup that's between interconference matchup. I believe, as we'll talk about the 7:30 game, I think there's at one point pretty much 3 straight games that's between East versus West kind of matchup. So that should be very interesting to see. And this, of course, is one of them. And again, anytime when it's an early kickoff, and especially for a West Coast team to have to travel on the road against an Eastern Conference team, even if it's all from a 2 week break, that is always going to be tough to do so. And we'll see whether or not if the Rapids can adjust, especially against a Toronto side that I don't think a lot of teams should take Toronto lightly. This has definitely been a better team, and especially if they can get Josh Sargent going, which I'm assuming they might give him more minutes, because now he has 2 weeks to basically practice and get himself match fitness. You would have assumed Robin Fraser may start giving him more time compared to what we've seen in the last couple of weeks when he just arrived with this team. Now, moving on, we got RSL versus Sporting KC. So this is always kind of an interesting game, because anytime when both of these teams play against each other, we know both of these teams do not like each other whatsoever. But RSL has kind of got off to a surprising start with a 3-1-1 record. Big part of that is because the youth movement is definitely strong right now in Salt Lake. But for Sporting KC, they have a 1-1 and free record, and I already mentioned Sporting KC in the midst of a deep rebuild, but they are showing the effort, and that's kind of the thing I would say about Sporting KC. Where as much as I've said that they are kind of in some way the Santa Claus of MLS, giving away free points to every team, you don't want to take them too lightly. They have showed the effort that they'll make you earn that free points, and I think that's what RSL needed to do in this one, especially the way the Sporting KC has at times put up a fight whenever they play against RSL. Like I said, both of these teams, they don't like each other. This goes all the way back to when they meet each other back in 2013 in MLS Cup, that is. But this, of course, is the first of two games that starts at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, and turns the all-time meeting 16, 10, and 11 in favor of RSL. And on paper, while you would think RSL is the heavy favorites in this one, like I said, what we've seen with Sporting KC, they're not going to make it easy on you to get all 3 points, but in reality, when it comes to the quality, you would assume RSL should be able to continue this good run to begin the season as well. Now, moving on, we got New England versus Montreal. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you can call this the desperation derby or you could call this a sad derby because, yeah, this is between two very bad teams. New England 1-0 and 3, whereas Montreal is 1-0 and 4. And while I'm pretty sure a lot of people will keep an eye on this game, I'm not sure about this one itself. This game also started at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. All-time meeting 18, 4, and 14 in favor of the New England Revolution. So anytime when you have two teams that kind of go off to a bad start, I mean, I'm pretty sure when they face against each other, they would. Again, I feel like maybe you could say it's a desperation derby. I know we're only 5 games into the new season. This is the 6 games for most teams except for New England, Houston, who of course play one less game because they had a game postponed earlier this year. But yeah, even though it was still early in the season, you do not want to fall behind a ball too far and have to dig yourself out of a deep hole. So it's very important. Like both of these teams, they would definitely be seeing this as a big opportunity with the way that they haven't been playing well so far this season. If they can get a big win in this one against even a lesser opponent, they would feel like maybe there's some hope that they can dig themselves out of the hole. So we'll see which team, of course, can do that out of these two teams. That yeah, wouldn't be surprised it might be a boring game because yeah, neither of these teams have played so well. I mean, besides one game, I mean both of these teams I would say that they have what's also in common as bad of a start it is. Both of them have had one good game. I mean, New England had that one good game against Cincinnati, getting that 6-goal win, or a 5-goal win. It was a 6-1 result against Cincinnati, and then Montreal, of course, having that big performance against the Red Bulls on the road. But other than that, if you look away that one outlier performance for both of these teams have pretty much been bad so far in the beginning of the season. Moving on to the 7:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff, and like I said, there's a lot of 7:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff. This usually is where I said it's the meat of the action, and it really is this week. I mean, there's a lot of games that starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Starting off with the New York Red Bulls versus FC Cincinnati. The Red Bulls, yeah, after that fast start that they had for Michael Bradley, and everybody started to talk about maybe Michael Bradley might be Coach of the Year candidate of what he's already done, especially with the youth movement that he's done with the Red Bulls. Yeah, it has not gone so well lately. They've been winless in the last 3 games after getting off to a great start this season. They play against a Cincinnati team that got a much needed win last time when they faced against Montreal. I mean, they really needed that win after the disaster that they had against Tigres, and now we'll see whether they can be on the up again in this one. All-time meeting 8, 5, and 7 in favor of the New York Red Bulls. So yeah, with the way that I'm pretty sure for Michael Bradley, he's pretty much spending this 2 weeks to find out what has gone wrong with his team and how teams have kind of already figured them out after that surprising start, and we'll see whether or not if they can get themselves back to where they were looking at in the first 2 games of the season. Because the way that they look at the first 2 games of the season, that was absolutely spectacular. They just haven't been that kind of team in these last couple of games, and we'll see whether they can do that against a Cincinnati team that I'm pretty sure Pat Nolan must be really focused mostly on his defensive play, because as I said, the problem for Cincinnati so far this season is alarmingly how bad this defense is, and what's so alarming is the fact that it's not because of injuries have crippled the defense that's kind of make the defense bad. It's the same guy that you would expect to be starters and guys that have been providing good defensive reinforcement for this team over the years that have just completely fall off the map. This season have completely underperformed to a way where Cincinnati, I would have never thought, I would say a Pat Nolan Cincinnati team would look like a team from the first couple of seasons when they were just wooden spoon teams over and over again and giving up goals like candy whatsoever. Moving on to the other New York team, so it's very rare we see two New York team playing at home on the same week, and nevertheless at the same time as well. 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. The other New York team, NYCFC, is playing against St. Louis City. NYCFC have a 3-1-1 record. They're all coming off their first loss of the season against Inter Miami, whereas St. Louis coming off their first win of the season when they got a win against New England in this one. All-time meeting, St. Louis, of course, winning the one meeting against NYCFC. And yeah, should be very interesting to see how this, of course, will go. Obviously, NYCFC would love to bounce back after the performance that they had against Inter Miami, and especially how controversial that game was. And I'm pretty sure NYCFC fans are still very upset of the you know what call that happened a couple of weeks ago against Inter Miami, and we'll see whether or not they can do so against the St. Louis side. That definitely shows some more attacking prowess and finishing ability against New England, but how much is that because they play against a bad team? Now that they face against a good team, is this going to be like what we see in the beginning of the season, where yeah, their attack is definitely a lot to left to desire. Moving on to the main event of this week. This is the game that everybody's been talking about because it is finally officially the home opener for Inter Miami. The brand new stadium, that is new stadium, is going to get its big grand opening. Pretty surprised this is not a standalone game. I really am. I feel like for this big of an occasion, especially for the darlings of MLS known as Inter Miami, I would have thought that this would be a standalone game instead of being part of all of these games that starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. But nevertheless, Inter Miami, of course, coming in of them finally playing their first home game of this season in league play. Obviously, they technically already play at home in one of their game, and that of course in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And yeah, I don't think Miami fans need to know what happened in that game. Didn't go so well for them in that game. But they're playing against Austin in this one. Austin have a 1-2-2 record. Miami has a 3-1-1 record. All-time meeting. Austin have never lost to Miami, even though they only play each other twice. Austin have won one and drawn one against Inter Miami. But bear in mind, this is the first time that Austin, of course, is playing against a Miami team that had Messi. There. I mean, when they play against Miami, there was no Messi, and this was before the hype has kind of gone to this team, and how this team has kind of become a bit of a super team in a way with Messi and friends. So yeah, we'll see whether or not if Austin can continue that good record now that they get to face against Messi and friends, especially maybe be the party pooper in this one, because obviously for Inter Miami, the most important thing coming into this game is that they want to put a show. That's all that is needed. It's not about just getting a win in this one, but they need to put a show when the fact that it is going to be a packed house in their brand new stadium. And another thing I will always say whenever a team play in a brand new stadium, you would have thought that maybe a team when they play in a brand new stadium they would be excited and knowing that they would have a good home field advantage, and that actually is harder from the truth. I mean, I've seen before where when teams do decide to open their new building, it does take a time for them to get used to being their home because it's a new stadium. They're not used to the familiarity of their surrounding compared to their old home that is. So yeah, we'll see whether or not if that might be the case. Well, it might not be because we know Miami has all kinds of talent whatsoever. They always look comfortable both at home and on the road as well, especially when they have Messi in the team. So yeah, I would expect maybe this team is not going to struggle in their new home as maybe some team maybe when they get to play in their new home for the very first time. Now, moving on, we got DC versus FC Dallas, so another interconference matchup. DC, one of the more surprising team in the East, got off to a good start with a 2-1-2 record, but this is probably one of their biggest tests against a Dallas team that even though they have a 2-2-1 record, this is a very good Dallas team. This is a very under the radar Dallas team where I don't think the record kind of determined the fact that how good they've been throughout the season. All-time meeting 7-2-4 in favor of FC Dallas. And one thing about FC Dallas in the last couple of games, they have been involving a lot of high-scoring game. Now, I'm not quite sure if this is going to be one of those games. DC is not a team that is used to be a high-scoring team because they don't really have a lot of attacking weapon besides Ty Baribo, who has really continued the hot form that he's been in, especially last season, especially at the beginning of the season. That's good, obviously, for DC, but again, as Philly fans kind of remind DC fans, Baribo kind of got off to a good start last season as well, and then he really cooled off. That's the concern, I think, if you're a DC fans about Ty Baribo, where as good as he is scoring right now, once he does start to cool off, that's when, yeah, he just doesn't. See, it's going to take a while for him to get himself back to where he was in the beginning of the season. So yeah, overall, this should be a very interesting test for DC to see when they are facing against a pretty good Western Conference team. Is this team for real? Is this team definitely one of the more surprising team and a team that I thought this was supposed to be one of the wooden spoon battle kind of team, but they have got off to a good start, and we'll see how long that, of course, will last. Now, moving on, we got Charlotte versus the Philadelphia Union. So speaking of wooden spoons, so right now the Union is sitting at that spot. I mean, I'm not gonna say that it might happen, but that would be historic if we ever see a situation where a supporter shield winning team would be following season would be win the wooden spoon. That have never happened before, where a supporter shield winning team would finish dead last and win the wooden spoon. I mean, that would be even a crazier achievement than what we saw with the Galaxy last season of them being the worst team in the league for a long time after coming up off of an MLS Cup title as well. But yeah, nothing has gone right for the Union so far for Bradley Carnell. They've lost their first 5 games. They hope to change that where they face against a Charlotte team has a 2-2-1 record. But as I said before, that's a very misleading record because the thing about Charlotte and the thing that I'm still not convinced with them is the fact that they have not looked good when they do play 11v11. They have looked good when they play 10v11, but when they play 11v11 and especially the attack, that's where the problem, of course, begin. All-time meeting 4-2-3 in favor of the Philadelphia Union. So dare I say, I wouldn't be surprised this might be a low-scoring game. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those games where if you expect there's going to be fireworks in this game and there's going to be a lot of goal scoring, yeah, this may not be the game that you want to tune in. But I might be wrong though. I mean, how many times I've said when there's a game that I expect some fireworks and there's supposed to be a lot of goals, and then it ends up to be a 0-0 resort because that's just kind of how it is whenever I do preview of these games. So yeah, we'll see how this game, of course, would go, and especially for the Union. I mean, now that they have 2 weeks to dwell on after getting off to this is probably the worst start that the Philadelphia Union has ever had in franchise history. I don't recall they've started the season 5 losses in a row, and this is even back when they were a bad team. If you remember before they started to become good in the late 2010s, they were a very bad team. They were a bottom dweller in the East year after year, and even then, I don't think they started 0-1-5 as they have got so far. Still looking for their first point of the season. That is. Moving on. Speaking of teams that are still looking for their first point, well, in this case, their first win of the season. That goes to the Columbus Crew, who is the other winless team so far this season. But unlike the Union, at least they have 2 draw to their name. But for Henry Rushem, he's still looking for his first win of the season, and he's going to try to do that against a Atlanta United team that have kind of become a little inconsistent. Though I think if you're a Five Stripe fan, you would take it because consider how bad they were last season. You would take them being inconsistent over them just being bad every single week. But this, of course, is the last game that starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Like I said, Columbus still looking for their first win with an 0-2-3 record. Atlanta with a 1-1-3 record. All-time meeting 12-3-8 in favor of the Columbus Crew. And you remember how this matchup a couple of years ago was must-watch TV because of how entertaining I think it was, especially in that first round best of 3 series. Yeah, we are long from those days. I mean, both of these teams haven't got off to the start that they wanted. So yeah, you could maybe say it's another desperation derby, especially for Columbus as well. I mean, for Harry Rusham, I know this is still 5 games in the season, and I know that when you ever bring a new head coach in, especially for a guy that he didn't really come in until relative late and trying to like change things up. There may be some growing pains there, but then there's that, and also the fact that I think Crew fans maybe are starting getting a little impatient. The fact that yeah, this is still supposed to be a championship caliber team. The fact that we have started the season bad. I mean, there's only so much, especially with the pressure nowadays with head coaches, where if you don't deliver, you're gonna show the door more often than we have seen before. The patience when it comes to front office and GMs and sporting director with their head coaches is shorter than ever before. So wouldn't be surprised if the Columbus front office, if the longer this winless run go, the longer this bad start of the season goes for this Columbus team and not getting their win. Let us say maybe Hammer Rusham could be on the hot seat relatively quick, even though he's just been hired with this team just a couple of months ago. Now let's get to the late West Coast kickoff and the 8:30 p.m. Eastern start for a Saturday game. Starting off with the Houston Dynamo and the Seattle Sounders. So for the Sounders, I believe this is the final game of that 5-game road trip to begin the season, and I'm pretty sure Sounders fans are very happy the fact that the light is at the end of the tunnel. And it's kind of weird the fact that they have their final game of this 5-game road trip literally on the back end of the international break, but at least they get a chance to train at home and doesn't have that worry of the fact that every single week they have to train and then they realize that, oh, we got another road game coming up. And in this case, this is the final one where they face against a Houston team that has a 2-0-2 record and a Houston team that's been kind of inconsistent to begin that's the start of the season. All-time meeting, Seattle has absolutely dominated this meeting. 18-9-5 in favor of the Sounders. So, yeah, you would say that maybe the Sounders will be favorites again. But as I mentioned in my News of the Week episode yesterday, what a huge blow that was to if this report is true, the fact that Nikola Pekovic is out for this season. Like, a guy that was supposed to replace Ober Vargas in terms of that spot after they sold their talented youngster away, now that his replacement is injured, and with the way that this team just cannot catch a break when it comes to the injury bug and their star player getting injured. Yeah, it would be very interesting to see how the Sounders will bat. I mean, I'm pretty sure they'll still do. I mean, Pekovic, as much as I do trying to make it sound like it's a big deal, I only make it a big deal because the fact that he is supposed to be that replacement for Ober Vargas. He's been pretty good so far, at least in his limited time with the Sounders. I mean, that's definitely going to be a bit of a blow and a piece that they're definitely a little short because of the sale of Ober Vargas and the fact that they don't have Pekovic there. So yeah, the midfield is definitely going to be tested when it comes to the depth, and we'll see whether or not if that will out for the Sounders team, who looking to finish this 5-game road trip. So far, it's been incredible how good they managed in terms of being on the road. Not a lot of team is able to go on this long of a road trip and still be in the positive side, but that's what the Seattle Sounders does, and they have a chance to finish that on a good note against a team that they historically has done pretty well against both home and on the road. Moving on, we got Chicago versus Nashville, and I want to say it. I really don't want to say it. Feel like I have to say it, but I really don't, because remember how I said earlier before for how I always say that a matchup that on paper it seems like it's going to be a juicy matchup that feature a lot of goals and there's going to some fireworks. How every time when I said that so far this season, it has kind of gone the opposite. I really don't want to say it, but on paper, you can see why I think this could be a matchup that has firework. I mean, both of these teams, they have been very good on the attacking end. Defensively, though, Nashville is still pretty good defensively. I mean, in general, Nashville is just unstoppable to begin the season. But keep in mind, this is where I said before earlier this video how much with teams that now have this 2-week break, when with teams that have all the momentum, how much is the 2-week break going to hurt the momentum? And we're about to find out with this Nashville side and with BJ Count side that while it's great that they of course have a 2-week rest, and especially a much needed rest after they're also one of those teams that play a lot of games to begin the season. But at the same time, they're playing good. I mean, they actually feel better to play as much game as possible in the form that they are in. But now that they have a bit of a pause, it'll be very interesting to see whether they can get themselves right back to where they were. And it's not going to be easy because again, this is a Chicago team. It's a good team. Greg Berhalter so far has done a good job with getting this team to start well this season. But in terms of the all-time record, yeah, Nashville pretty much dominated this all-time meeting. 6-2-1 in favor of Nashville, as this, of course, is one of the other, or this is the other game that starts at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. So, like I said, I really don't want to say it because I know I'm going to be a jinx, and if I say that this game is going to feature a lot of goals, most likely this game is going to end 0-0 because that's how it's going to be. But something tells me that there's going to be fireworks in this game. Something tells me when you have two good attack going up against each other, wouldn't be surprised if we might see a lot of goals in this game. Now, moving on to the West Coast game, starting off with LAFC versus Orlando City. So I believe this is the Saturday feature game on warm-up. If not this game, I think it's probably this one between Miami and Austin, because anytime when the game starts 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, especially for a West Coast team, usually that's kind of the warm-up feature game of the week. Though it's kind of an odd game that they choose this as the feature game because yeah, it's a very big mismatch. LAFC with a 4-1-0 record, whereas Orlando has a 1-0-4 record, and in terms of the all-time meaning 3-2-0 in favor of LAFC. LAFC have never lost to Orlando City, and it doesn't seem like that's gonna change in this one. I mean, I know again, this goes back to what I said with LAFC playing so well coming into the break. How much is that momentum going to really they stall out because of it? But they're facing against an Orlando City side that, yeah, let's just say everything is falling apart with this team. The only silver lining is the fact that Antoine Griezmann is going to come to this team. I don't know if he's going to make a huge difference. I mean, the problem with Orlando so far, goal scoring obviously is an issue, but I think the biggest issue with this team is the defense. It's been non-existent so far this season. I mean, it's been a revolving door when it comes to their defense, and now you get to face against one of the hotter attack in this league. Well, I wouldn't say a hot attack. I mean, the thing about LAFC is that with all the talent that they haven't really scored as much goals as I feel like they should be. It feels like some of these MLS games they have kind of took it second gear and not have hit their stride just yet. Or maybe that's due to the fact that they have played in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and that maybe they're just conserving some energy for those kind of event. Now that they don't have to worry about that, maybe they'll definitely go all out in this game against Orlando City. But still, yeah, this should be very interesting to see. And that again, anytime when you have a one-sided affair like this, on paper you would have think the team that's heavy favorite that should win the game. But then again, this is MLS. Anything can happen. We can definitely see some crazy see games that or resort that no one saw coming. So who knows? Maybe Orlando can pull off a shocker in this one. That's the only thing that I think they'll have a chance in this one, because when you're struggling and now you get to face against one of the best team in the Western Conference, that is definitely not a recipe to try to dig yourself out of the deep hole that they already found themselves in the beginning of the season. Speaking of that, that goes the same for the Portland Timbers, and they get to play against a team that they simply hate playing against. I mean, I'm pretty sure every time when Portland play against Vancouver, they just feel like, can we just give Vancouver 3 points and move on? Because Vancouver has really owned the Timbers, at least in the last couple of meetings. Though BC plays, it's been a little bit closer than when they play at Providence Park. I mean, when they play at Providence Park, it's not even close. I mean, Vancouver absolutely put belt to ass every time when they play against the Timbers, at least in the last couple of years. But yeah, the Whitecaps 4-0-1, of course, fresh off their first loss of the season in the last game coming into the international break. Whereas the Portland Timbers, I mean, they got that hard fought draw against the LA Galaxy, but keep in mind they have still not won a single game ever since get that impressive 3-2 win against Columbus. Which on paper that might look impressive, but then again, you look at where Columbus is right now, I mean, it might not seem as impressive as some might say. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, the Timbers still has the lead in terms of the all-time meeting, despite the fact the Whitecaps have kind of really owned this head-to-head in the last couple of meetings. So yeah, again, you know, this game seems like it's a mismatch. This seems like one of those games for Vancouver they should be able to win, but who knows? I mean, the Portland Timbers. There's one thing I was give the Timbers a little bit more more chance compared to what I say Orlando. Of them probably have no chance against LAFC on the road. Is that at least the Timbers have a pretty good attack that they can definitely match toe to toe with Vancouver. But the defense, that's where it's a problem. So yeah, that we'll see how this, of course, will turn out. Moving on, we got the San Jose Earthquakes versus San Diego FC. So as I mentioned before, the Quakes, they're definitely all off to probably the most surprising start, I think, between them and RSL. These are the two teams that I definitely did not see this coming with the start that they have. Now, as I said before, the Quakes are in the midst of the biggest test that they have, and these are kind of the games that really truly tell that whether or not if they're for real or not. I did say in the last game that I think think the Quakes are for real after getting that impressive road win against Vancouver, and now we'll see whether or not they can do it again against a San Diego team that have yet to lose a game this season. And keep in mind, the Quakes, they are still in the midst of this really tough stretch where I mentioned before, for the two easy games that they have, they're probably in for the toughest stretch of the season where they have to go face against Philly on row. And even though I know Philly has been really bad this season, we didn't know that that was going to be the case. Then they had to go play against Seattle at home, and then play Vancouver on the road, and now playing against San Diego. And so far, I know the Seattle game they lost that one, but so far I've been very impressed of how they play. They have gone toe to toe with their opponent, and what's even more impressive is the fact that that defense has just been lights out. I mean, when's the last time I say a San Jose Earthquakes defense has been lights out? It feels like it feels surreal to see how good this defense is. I don't think I've seen this good of a defensive performance by the Quakes in a long time. Not even when Luchi Gonzalez was coaching this team, and especially not when Mateus Almeida was coaching this team as well with the man marking system. But like I said, with all the tough tests that they have, this one might be equally as tough because they're facing against a San Diego side that have a 3-2 and roll record. Now, the San Diego side, they have kind of slowed down a little bit after got off to a perfect start the season. I think they've drawn to back games after the perfect start the season. And in terms of the all-time meeting, 1-0-1 is the all-time meeting. And so far, the road teams has been the only one that got the win. San Diego, of course, getting the road win last year. I was there for that game when San Diego beat the Quakes, and then the Quakes got the road win against San Diego in a matchup that no one saw coming, especially how good San Diego was and how bad the Quakes were at that point. So yeah, should be a big showdown game. It's kind of one of those games where you wouldn't expect this to be a showdown matchup. I mean, some might even say that this is kind of a rivalry game. They kind of build this as the El Camino rivalry or the El Camino Derby. I mean, I guess that's probably the name whenever you see two California teams face off against each other. But yeah, should be a very fascinating game. I was actually originally thinking about going to this game, but I decided not to do so because the tickets prices for this game is actually really expensive, and I'm also trying not to go to as much Quakes game, and also trying to kind of lay back on a little bit of these ground hopping adventure that I've been doing on the channel because, as you probably know, gas prices is very expensive right now, and with the way that I spent a lot of money in my Florida trip, and the fact that we have the World Cup coming up as well, where I'll probably spend a lot of money doing that time as well. You can see why I am definitely trying to save my money and not go to as many games as I would be. But I'll definitely try to go to a Quakes game, and I know for sure that the U.S. Open Cup game, that's the one that I think I want to go to because the U.S. Open Cup game tickets are going to be very cheap compared to this and the San Diego one, where I look on Ticketmaster and even look at SeatGeeks. I think it's like $50 or $60. That might not sound pricey, but that's just the get-in prices. There are tickets that are selling for $100. I guess that's the price to pay when you are seeing a team that is good for one of the first time. But when you have a showdown like this, yeah, tickets prices are definitely going to be more on the high side. Now, moving on to the last game, and it's also featured my team. So I don't remember the last time where both of my team played this late into the evening. But yeah, Minnesota, of course, have to go on the road to face against the Galaxy. Both teams have a 1-2 record. You can say maybe this is a desperation derby as well because both of these games desperately need a win after getting off to a slower start than they hoped for. All-time meeting 10-6-3 in favor of the Galaxy. And keep in mind, besides the fact that Minnesota, I know that they have got to a slow start to the season, but I am gonna say give them kind of a mulligan, knowing the fact that they just come out of probably the toughest schedule that any team has had to start the beginning of the season. And not to mention the fact that they have been battling injuries. I mean, the injury bug has really hit this Minnesota team hard in the beginning of the season. And the reason why I say that is that James Rodriguez is not going to be available in this game. Apparently, he was took to the hospital. I think yesterday, and this was the news happened right after my News of the Week episode. Of course, that has to happen where big news like this happened right after my News of the Week episode. But yeah, apparently he was taken to the hospital because of dehydration that he had in that friendly. I mean, that's kind of a weird thing to see happen, but I guess it does happen, and now he's going to be out for that game against the Galaxy, and that's a big blow because from what we see with the limited sample size that James Rodriguez has done with this Minnesota team, he's been very good. He is definitely a difference maker and to not have that difference maker, and the fact that this team has really struggled on the attacking end. Again, this will also be another one of those games where if you're a neutral and you expect to see a lot of goals and a lot of crazy action, yeah, this is probably not a game you want to watch. In fact, Minnesota game this season has been relatively boring. There hasn't really been a lot of thrilling game involving Minnesota. So, yeah, if you want to watch a thrilling game, I'd say maybe between these two games, maybe this one maybe could have some fireworks. The San Jose versus San Diego game that could also have fireworks as well because it's between two really good teams, but not so much between the Galaxy and Minnesota. These are just two really bad teams to begin this season that are just trying to get themselves out of this hole and try to get themselves something going for this season. That is. But that is pretty much it for the preview of all 15 of these games that's going to happen tomorrow. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And the way I'm going to do the review is similar to what I usually do. I'll probably just do the first part where I look at the first 8 game, and then the second part looking at the last 7 game that is, like I usually do. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below your prediction of all 15 of these games. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.